Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for attending. My name is Alan Belniak with VHB, one of the facilitators of the meeting. I'm your virtual meeting facilitator. Along with me is my esteemed colleague, Matt Hogan, who is helping facilitate the meeting in person in the LV in the meeting room. So thanks to Matt for handling the in-person component. I'm going to run through a couple components about how the meeting is going to work in this hybrid environment, and then I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Dave to introduce the meeting in earnest. So just to let you know, the way the meeting is going to work is that we are going to go through a presentation. The team here has got a bunch of great content to show you. And then at the end of the meeting, or toward the end of the meeting, excuse me, there's an audience participation component for both of those of you in the room as well as online. And we'll go over that when the time is right. We'll be using the chat function for that. But during the presentation itself, please sit back and enjoy a lot of great information coming at you. At the end of the presentation, we're going to then move to a Q&A and comment period. And there's a couple ways you can do that. So first off, for the folks who are here virtually inside Zoom, you've got a couple options. There's a Q&A panel down below, and it does just exactly what it sounds like, questions and answers. You can type in your question or your comment, and when the time is right, if it's a question, we'll answer it toward the end of the meeting. We'll read it aloud and answer it. You also have the option to raise your hand. So for those of you using Zoom on your computer or a mobile device, you can look for the raise hand button down below. Looks like someone's giving you a high five, and that will send a signal to us that you'd like to ask a question or comment. If you're dialing in from the telephone, it does not look like we have any telephone attendees at the moment, but if you were, you can press *9, and that does the same thing. Again, if you raise your hand, it's not that, when we see it, that's great. We're going to save those questions and comments till the end. If you enter your question or comment using the Q&A box, that's great. We're going to get to it at the very end though. So feel free to load them up now, but we're not going to address them until later on. We are recording the meeting, so I just want to make sure everyone's okay with that. If that's not something you're comfortable with, now's a good time to exit the meeting. I'll remind everyone once more before the Q&A and comment period starts as well. There's also a live transcript button available as well. If you toggle on the live transcript, you should see live computer-generated text transcriptions of the meeting. If that's not something you want to see, you can hover over that button and hit hide subtitles, and it should dismiss them from your screen. So with that, I will now turn the meeting over to my colleague Dave to get the meeting started in earnest, and I'll be back with you later on for the Q&A period. So with that, Dave, thank you.
Great, thank you, Alan. So welcome to everyone here for the first meeting for the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail Management Plan. For those who are virtual, welcome to you, and for those of you who are here in person, welcome for braving the cold and the dark coming out tonight. My name is David Saladino. I'm with VHB, so consultant project manager for this project. And I want to do quick introductions of the people who will be speaking tonight. Just a couple of logistics, some housekeeping, particularly for those who are here in person. Didn't notice the big sign and arrow out here. The restrooms are out and to the left. If you have your cell phones, if you wouldn't mind muting those as we go forward. And if you didn't get a chance to sign in at the back, if you could, before you leave, sign in. We'll hold on to your email addresses so you can stay apprised of the information as we go forward. For those of you who are virtual, we'll be talking about how you can get registered for the mailing list as well if you'd like to stay tuned on project updates. So as Alan alluded to, we've got some really good content tonight. I want to just introduce some of the speakers who'll be talking tonight. Let's see, we'll start off over here to my right here with Chris Hunt, project manager with VTrans. For those of you may look very small on the screen, but Chris is here. He'll be giving an update on the construction status for the last remaining segments of the rail trail. We've got Karen Sentoff here. She is the deputy project manager with VHB, the project team, and the lead investigator on the project. We have Michelle Boomhauer here. She is the director of policy planning and intermodal development at VTrans, and she'll be kicking things off with a kind of a high-level overview. And last but not least, we have Amy Bell in the back with VTrans. She's a planning manager and the VTrans project manager on this project. So as a team, we'll all be presenting some information as we get towards the end. What we're really hoping to do is get feedback from you on opportunities, issues, where you'd like to see the rail trail go in the future. So for that, I will turn it over to Michelle.
Thank you, David. Wow, it's great to be here in Lamoille County this evening and to be collaborating virtually with folks from Franklin County and from the Northeast Kingdom, Caledonia County. It's a wonderful time for the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. We have the construction project well on its way to coming to conclusion at the end of 2022. We've received funding through Senator Sanders to do a lot of collaboration and coordination with communities and partners throughout the rail trail network. And it's really hard to believe that we are here at this moment. I've been associated with this project for about 25 years, starting when I worked at the Lamoille County Planning Commission. When I moved to Lamoille County in the late 80s, there was a train operating on the state-owned railroad. The state had purchased this line in 1973, and they leased it to a few different operators during the time up until 1995, when we had severe flooding here in Lamoille County, and many sections of the trail or the rail system were washed away. And it was looking like sort of a virtual impossibility in terms of the investment to restore those sections. The operating railroad at the time was a scenic train, so there wasn't a lot of sort of fiscal investment going on in terms of the leaseholder. And so the lease was dissolved, and off we went into thinking about the vision for this state facility by 1997, when the state worked with the regional planning commissions across this area of the rail trail, along with the regional economic development corporations and the chambers of commerce, to examine how we could take this incredible resource owned by the state and preserve this corridor for future generations to use. And the one way we have to do that is through the Federal Surface Transportation Board process that lets us take an operating railroad, preserve that right of way for interim uses and for the future in the event rail service ever were ever to be operational and profitable to occur again. And this has been done all over the country. And in 1997, in 2002, the Surface Transportation Board authorized the state of Vermont to move forward with our plan. And we then held a process whereby we invited folks to bring forth ideas for what to do with this trail. And in around 2005, VAST, the Vermont Association of Snow Travelers, who had been a wintertime user of the trail for a bit of time at that point, came forward with an idea for creating the rail trail. And so we entered, being the state of Vermont, entered into a lease with VAST, and then Senator Sanders came forth with what we thought would be all the money needed to advance the development of the entire trail network. Well, as oftentimes happens in major construction projects with a lot of unknown variables, the just over $5 million that was brought forth at that time was not quite what we needed. And so VAST, as you see up here, along with many of the partners, I've mentioned regional planning commissions and chambers of commerce and development corporations, have really been key leaders in terms of keeping the momentum going and moving this forward. And then all of you, our municipal partners, so many towns along the trail have invested at the community level, worked on grants to make enhancements to their facilities on the rail trail, to bring people from their community to the rail trail and to bring users of the rail trail into their communities. Businesses along the way are sprouting up, and we're very excited that we will see more, as now there is a concrete plan and a concrete endpoint in terms of when this trail will be completed, and we will all enjoy the benefits of the trail. I wouldn't want to not leave the podium without mentioning the Friends of the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, who've been a steadfast partner in this effort all the way through. For VAST, it's not only been the leadership at VAST, but it's been the trail groups in each of the communities who have participated in helping to maintain the trails where it's been open and assure that users in the wintertime can take advantage of the trail. And then alas, a lot of volunteers and many, many donors. VAST had an extensive capital campaign to raise funds for the effort, and people were very open and welcoming to bring their resources to this project because they could view the long-term opportunity for this to be a terrific resource, not only for the local communities along the rail trail, but also for visitors to the state of Vermont who are interested in recreation of this nature. So we are excited to be here tonight. We are excited to be undertaking this management planning process, which is the first of its kind for our system of rail trails in the state that the state owns. And that includes not only the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, but the Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail, which has had strong partnership from the region and the communities there. The BB Spur up in Newport, which is a smaller rail trail, but very critical to their community and connections to Canada, as well as the Delaware and Hudson Rail Trail down in the Polteny area. And this management planning process is going to set the stage for us to develop management plans for each of those 4 rail trails as we move forward, creating a consistent approach to management and inviting visitors to the state of Vermont to enjoy our trail resources. So I thank you all for being here. I thank you all for being online, joining us here this evening. And I look forward to hearing from all of you, your thoughts, your ideas, your interests in how we shape the future of this rail trail. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much for those remarks, Michelle. And just to introduce you to this management planning process, I want to not move forward without acknowledging the project team, which Dave has already introduced you to, but also the stakeholder group who we've assembled to help sort of shepherd this process through. You'll see on the right-hand side of the screen here, a number of folks across VTrans, as well as representation from VAST and the regional planning commissions are also involved, and of course the Friends of the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. So those folks are really at the table and helping us sort of work through what the framework is for this planning process. And just to go over quickly our agenda for the evening, we'll touch on the project background and just sort of tell you a little bit about how we got here if you don't know some of the history of the project. And then Chris will give us a quick construction update on where things stand in terms of the completion of the trail and the construction that's happening out there. We'll go through the existing conditions that we've been assembling and gaining understanding of what we have in place today and what that construction is going to provide in terms of the trail and the assets that are out there. And then dive into the management development process, the management plan development process, and give you a brief introduction to that. And then open it up to hear from all of you. We really want to spend the majority of the evening hearing from folks both in the virtual space and in the room, what your ideas and insights are for the trail. So a little bit about the project. The LVRT is a railway, as Michelle was saying. Railroad was built in 1877 and sort of changed hands over the years under various management. In 1880 was coined the St. Johnsbury and Lake Champlain Railroad. Gives you a little idea of the geography of the trail corridor. It was sustained primarily by freight and passenger travel across the state. And the state purchased the corridor in 1973 and ceased operation in 1994. And in 2004, just about a decade later, the Surface Transportation Board approved the rail banking of the trail, meaning basically that it would preserve the corridor if it were to be used for rail purposes in the future, but allowing interim use for other activities. And the LVRT is a recreational trail. The lease agreement that Michelle mentioned was with VAST, so VTrans and VAST entered that agreement in 2006, really focused on restoring the corridor as a 4-season recreational and transportation corridor. And VAST completed 33 miles of trail through all of those efforts that Michelle was speaking about earlier, which was a huge undertaking. And in 2018, VTrans assumed the responsibility for completing the trail and pushing it over the finish line, but couldn't have been done without those initial steps to get those 33 miles of trail complete. And this management planning effort is really focused on the transition from VAST managing the trail to VTrans managing the trail, and that's to occur on July 1st of this year. And now I'll invite Chris up to give us an update on the construction front of things.
Good evening. Thanks everybody for being here and also online. Before I get into construction, I just want to again thank everybody from VAST and the partners who have got us this far. When we took on the goal of getting this done by 2022, there were a lot of challenges, but without the work that was laid ahead of time, we never would have had the opportunity to get it done. So thanks again to all the partners who have got us this far. So where we are now, just quickly, what you're seeing on these slides, the map and schedule I'm about to show are available on the VTrans LVRT website. That info I'm sure will go out in chat and emails. So looking at the green, what's already been completed by VAST, we have St. John's Bay to Danville, 15.4 miles. Another 17.4 miles, the big section from Morrisville to Cambridge. 11.6 miles in the west, Sheldon to Swanton, and a small segment in Hardwick. Moving on to where we're at now, there are 4 active projects going right now, or all 4 that have been awarded. Looking first at priority bridges, if you look on the map, you'll see yellow circles interspersed throughout. Those are priority bridges. We wanted to get those going first because they had some of the longest lead times. That contract has been awarded to JPC Card. They are under construction right now, doing preliminary bridge abutment work, getting ready for the bridges to get here in the summer. Next, moving east to west, we have Danville to Hardwick. That has been awarded to GW Tetro, 17.9 mile segment. They are also active under construction, but sort of in a winter shutdown mode. They did some clearing and grubbing, basically preparing to really get underway in the spring. Moving next, Hardwick to Morristown. That's LVRT 12. That's been awarded to SD Ireland. We just had a pre-construction conference for that segment yesterday. They're getting their submittals in, getting underway. And then last, furthest to the east, is Cambridge to Sheldon. That has been awarded to Dirt Tech. Same deal, that's an active VAST corridor, so there's not too much work they can do right now, but they're starting to compile materials and you really, again, get ready to hit the ground in the spring. Here is some more of the schedule, just sort of a representation showing what was completed when, and also a representation of how busy we are right now. We have a lot of work January into 2022. So a little bit more about each segment. I said most of this just now. LVRT 10, that's the priority bridge project, was awarded to JPC Card. Completion date August 31st, 2022. Contract value $3.4 million. LVRT 11, that's in the west, Sheldon to Cambridge. Dirt Tech, completion date November 12th, 2022. $2.4 million. LVRT 12, Morrisville to Hardwick, that's awarded to SD Ireland. Completion date November 10th, 2022, $6.9 million. You'll notice that one stands out construction value wise. That's a longer segment, and we also have some historic bridges and bridge work built into that contract. And last, LVRT 13, awarded to GW Tetro, November 12th, 2022, completion date $2.2 million. So that gets us a trail open by the end of 2022. That's all the work that goes into bridges, culverts, cattle passes, and the surface of the trail, all the upgrades we need to do. Following closely behind that, we have what we call LVRT 14. That's a sign project. It's that's going to be geographic signs to show you how to get to the trail, where you are on the trail, mile markers, county lines, town lines. As part of this process, we're going to be working with a lot of the people we're seeking input from as part of this management process to get their input on what's there now, what they'd like to see. But to clarify what this is not and what type of input we're looking for on the management plan versus the sign. This is not going to be temporary traffic control during construction. It's not going to be signs pointing users to any individual businesses, events, attractions, and it's not going to be interpretive signage showing historical significance along the trail. That is in development now. We're hoping to bid it this winter, and the signs will be installed early 2023 or contemporaneous with the end of this project. That's the construction update. Back to Karen.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so with that construction update, we'll jump into some of the existing conditions that we've been gathering about the rail trail corridor, and a little bit about setting the foundation for the management planning process. So really quickly, the LVRT by the numbers, we have at our fingertips an inventory that's been assembled over the last decade plus of the trail. And so we've been combing through that to find out more about the assets that are out there, which are going to be essential for understanding what the management plan really needs to consider. And so on the left-hand side of the screen, you see some of those assets just tallied by the numbers here. 5 tunnels, 53 bridges, 96 crossings, 525 culverts, 34 cattle passes. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, just some of the highlights, features, amenities along the trail corridor, some of the historic sites, the highest and lowest elevation, which I thought was an interesting data point. 36 miles of the trail is adjacent to the Lamoille River corridor. So it really is a scenic trail corridor and full of many assets that we're going to have to consider in this management plan. Another piece of the management planning process that we really are focused on is connecting to communities. So with the completion of this trail, it's going to be the longest rail trail in New England, and that's very exciting for our communities along the trail. 18 towns are alongside the trail. And the trail corridor really provides connection to a number of other trail systems as well. So lots of opportunities to connect to hiking trails, ski trails, other rail trail spurs. So many opportunities along the way to connect with communities. And we've also been digging into some of the work that's already been done on some of the existing sections or plans that are getting into place with the anticipation of the completion of the trail. Several town plans propose improvements to create connections to the LVRT, really leverage this asset to bring folks into the communities and to get users into the communities, and also to help folks get onto the trail as a recreation transportation corridor. Some of the examples that we've pulled out of the literature so far, revitalizing the Danville train station as a welcome center, some of the wayfinding improvements that have been done, like the kiosks that you see on the screen here, pointing folks in the right direction, and many bicycle and pedestrian improvements to make those critical connections to town centers and villages along the corridor. We've also been conducting a best practices scan to really understand how this is done successfully across the country. And so we've been digging into a number of other management plans to really set that foundation and understand how this is done in other places and done well. And utilizing some of the toolboxes and other guidance and resources that are available out there to set that foundation. I just wanted to pull forward some of the sort of key components from some of those management plans and some of those guidance documents. We're sort of thinking about what needs to be encompassed in this management planning process. And it's falling into these three main buckets that you see on the screen: sort of management of a trail corridor, sort of setting those policies, understanding risk management and liabilities for the rail trail, the planning and the budgeting, and surveys and counts, understanding who's using the trail and when. Then there's the bucket of maintenance and operations. So this is really both the routine and remedial maintenance that needs to happen on the trail, but also that asset management piece, understanding the condition of the assets along the corridor and what needs to happen in terms of regular maintenance to those assets to keep the trail nice and for everyone to be utilizing it. In maintenance and operations, also coordination at all levels. So a lot of these management plans really focused on connecting to volunteers and coordinating with stewards of the trail systems. So really, that two-way street between the folks that are in the management role and setting those roles and responsibilities at every level. And then in terms of economic development and those community connections, this is a really critical piece to this effort. Making sure that there's services and amenities and folks know how to get on and off the trail to access those things, and really get folks into these communities, especially when folks are coming into the state to utilize this new rail trail corridor. And aligning with local and regional planning initiatives. So we spoke about that a little bit. There are a lot of folks already sort of setting the stage and putting those plans into place for existing sections of the trail, but what are those opportunities coming with the completion of the trail? And I wanted to touch really quickly on the recent appropriations. One of the things that we are looking at is not only the funding that has come in or has been requested for these efforts, but what are those other mechanisms that communities might leverage to get those enhancements and improvements, to make those trailheads or parking areas or whatever it is that sort of makes that critical connection to the communities adjacent to the trail. And so now we'll transition to the management plan overview, sort of set the stage for where we are and where we're headed. So there is an existing management plan. Part of the lease agreement between VAST and VTrans had a management plan in place. The most recent version of that was adopted in 2016. So we've been looking at that as sort of setting the stage for this effort. But with the shift of management responsibilities from VAST to VTrans on July 1st of this year, we really need to set a new plan that's a little less focused on the completion of the corridor and construction, and more focused on sort of longevity of this trail and those pieces that we were talking about before: the management, the maintenance, and the maintenance and operations, and those critical community connections. So the plan is needed really to describe a cohesive vision, and we will be talking about this in a little bit, hopefully getting ideas from you all on what the vision is for this corridor. Identifying those long-range strategies for management, maintenance, and operations of the trail, and supporting those opportunities for those community connections and leveraging those economic opportunities. And to expand on this a little bit, we really are looking to identify ways to improve the user experience, provide connections to existing and planned facilities, not only those trail systems that are already connected, but other ways we can connect to the rail trail, offering a range of transportation and recreation options, and spurring or complementing those economic development efforts that are in place or that are coming. And one of the key components here, and I think Michelle touched on this early in the conversation, is providing a model for the management planning process for other rail trails throughout the state. So really setting up that framework with this as sort of the first opportunity to set those policies and management plans in place. And how we intend to go about this is really through a robust public engagement process. We're really looking to gather input from the communities along the corridor and from stakeholders and the public. We're looking to you to really define the vision for the corridor, guide the development of the management plan, help us to identify the issues that are out there on the existing corridor, and also the opportunities for trail improvements or enhancements. How can we make those connections between communities and the trail? What places along the trail really need to be highlighted? And what are those economic development opportunities that we can be spurring or complementing with this effort? And we have plans to gather that input through public meetings like this. We'll have a couple of these throughout the course of this project effort. Stakeholder interviews, we will be gathering focus groups to talk in more detail about some of these issues and opportunities through our website, which we will link you to and put up on the screen in a little bit. A crowdsourced mapping tool, so hoping to have folks log in and tell us if you've got geographically specific ideas or things that you want to share. There's an opportunity to do that, and through social media. And here's just the process and schedule that we're following for this effort. So like I said, a couple of public meetings where we'll be back with you all, hopefully to discuss more about our progress on this effort. Again, hopefully in March, and then in late April or early May, at the tail end of two sort of milestones in this project, the gap analysis and needs assessment, which will be coming next, and then coming back again to discuss draft recommendations and the draft implementation plan for this. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dave, who's going to help us with the public input process.
Thank you, Karen. So all survived, you made it through the deluge of information, and now what we really want to do is kind of flip the script and what we want to hear from everyone here in person, and then obviously everyone who's virtual as well. So we're going to have kind of three questions we want to ask, or kind of goals that we're trying to get. The first will be we want to start to articulate a vision for the trail, and so that can be somewhat difficult if you're not, if this isn't your day job and you're planning all the time. And so we're going to get into we're going to look at a way to simplify kind of crafting a vision or thinking about a vision for the corridor. And we want to just get into any issues or opportunities, something that really bothers you about the trail, something you love about the trail. We're going to open up for that input, and then we'll end and show you how you can pass that information along after this meeting, after tonight, if there's anything more that you think of. So starting off with the vision, as Karen alluded to, there is an existing management plan for the LVRT. So that's vintage of 2016. I won't read through the entire thing. You can read through here, but there's lots of kind of aspirational language about being a world-class facility, being attracting international travelers, best in class, those kinds of things to really set the bar. And these visions, while it may seem like a lot of wordplay, they're very important in a management plan or a planning process to kind of set that goalpost so that we know the direction we want to head. As we start to identify opportunities or recommendations, we'll use that kind of as a filter. Do these ideas that people are coming up with, do they align with this vision that we've developed? So we really want to kind of build off of this vision and develop those goals and actions from this vision. So with that as kind of our starting point in the 2016 vision, we're going to try this out. So we are obviously hybrid here. So we're going to do, we'll see how thoughts go, but what we'll probably do is try to go back and forth. If there are folks have some ideas in the room, we'll start off here, and then we'll go over to the virtual room. So this is hopefully as basic as possible. Really just an image, a vision, a phrase, or something that comes to mind when you think of the LVRT in 25 years from now, or where you'd like to ideally see this trail. So with that kind of open-ended request, anyone in the room want to be the break the ice here?
Don't be shy. Go ahead and raise your hands if you've got one. All right, what do you got? Active.
Very good. Let's see, anyone?
Well, you broke the ice.
Yes.
What do you got?
First, kudos on the soliciting free market. good move.
Well, we got kudos on soliciting free marketing, so we'll take the kudos.
And the phrase would be recreation, development, connection, growth.
Recreation, development, connection, and growth. Thank you.
That's great.
Anyone else?
Also connection for me.
Connection?
We go online. Do we have some input from?
We
Our
most
virtual viewers.
certainly do. Let me read some of these. Are coming in fast.
But Matt, this is Alan. Just to let everyone know who is an attendee, I have enabled the chat function. Some of you have already found it. For those of you who don't know, just pop open that chat and you can go ahead and add something there. So go ahead, Matt. Sorry, thank you.
That's all right, Alan. I'm going to try to read some of these. I can't hit them all. We've got connected communities, health, relaxing, opportunity, economic opportunity, cross Vermont, celebrating history, exciting and fun, preeminent recreation destination, inclusive, great attraction for locals and tourists, scenic connection to Vermont culture, health and beauty. We still got more coming in.
So seeing some kind of recurring themes, the connectivity, development, economic promotion, certainly hearing that. Yes.
How about functional route?
What was the second word?
Route.
Route. Functional route. Yes. So functional as in accessible. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but not just somebody pretty to look at, but somebody really useful.
Yes. Something that's very useful. Yes. Yeah. Just going to be repeating this so that folks online can hear it, not trying to mock or repeat everything. Yes.
We've got a few more. Capacity and all users. Once again, touching on the inclusive.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Finding
where
Vermont. Sorry,
for any
Finding
other-
Vermont.
Finding Vermont. Yes. That's for any other thoughts, folks here in the room? This is a great start. And this is, we'll take these and craft these into sentences and language for review. We'll be bringing these back out to the public, but it's really coming, these kinds of keywords and phrases that I think is where the magic really happens. And so articulating these will be really helpful as we get into crafting of the vision.
I've got three more I want to mention that just came in the chat, Dave. We've got reminds me of the belt path that crosses Scotland. Respectful of nature and neighbors. And my favorite so far, it says tourism money funnel with a wink face.
Right. A money funnel. I like it. I like it. Okay. Well, good. Good. We'll do one last pass. Any thoughts here before we move on? Seeing none. And good. So we're gonna take this input and we're gonna turn it into a word cloud, and we'll show you the results at the end so you can see it'll some of the common themes. I think we'll show more graphically once we compile those into a word cloud. So stay tuned for that. So now we wanted to move on to kind of even more open-ended. So thinking about issues along the corridor, or concerns or obstacles or hindrances or things that you've run into. It may be not enough parking in certain locations or inaccessibility. You'll note here there's 2 bullets, and so we really want to think about today with partial segments open. Then if you can kind of project yourself out to next year when it's entirely open, are there still any remaining obstacles, hurdles, or things that you would anticipate even with the trail open that you would like to see addressed? And we'll start here in the room. Yes, sir.
So I already eat on the trail, and just since the Sheldon to Swan part has been completed this year, I've already noticed ruts from ATV. So just kind of wondering how we handle when the trail meets ATV culture.
Yeah. So we had a question about riding on the trails, noticing that fairly quickly after opening, and a question how to manage the multiple vehicle use, ATV use on the trails. Thank you.
Can we get the mic taken to people?
Yes.
Sure can. Do we have another question in the room?
One of the things that I wanted to mention was the necessity to access the trail by emergency medical providers. I'm a paramedic in Morrisville and have been called to the rail or the bike path in Stowe to provide assistance. And it's a completely different thing accessing a patient having an emergency on a trail versus in a town.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I've noticed as I've traveled throughout the country and world is different trails have different notifications or labeling for things like road crossings, access points, above and beyond the trailheads. Sometimes it's consistent, like on the Stowe Bike Path, I think it's like the bridges are numbered 1, 2, 3, and so dispatcher might tell us bridge number 8,
Yes.
something
Yeah.
like that.
And like mileposts along the
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So with that 14 project of the signage, something like that might be really useful. And as I learned coming from a provider in Morrisville to Stowe, it was even more important to have it very clear because that's not our normal response area, but we got called in as mutual aid.
Yeah. Got Chris here with a response.
Just on that, which you touched on 14, you're exactly right. There's going to be town line markers, mile markers. We're considering half miles as well, so we can get really specific with where we are. And you know, through the management plan, we'll have information about contacts for emergency services. And this is all the type of stuff we're trying to capture, but we are working on it.
You want to go to the virtual comments? We have thoughts coming in.
Alan, do we have any questions on the virtual side?
I'm sorry, are you asking for Q&A or are you asking for what's been entered into the chat? I don't.
Yeah, any issues identified via the chat?
Yes, there's a bunch. I'm sorry. I thought we were using the chat for the word cloud. Let me figure out where the word cloud ended.
Alan, I can grab a couple of these at least.
Sure.
I see one concern about dog and horse poop on the trail between Morrisville and Cambridge.
Very specific, yeah.
And then another one about coming in hard and fast here. Let me see. Let's see. Dominance by one culture, e.g. cyclists versus exclusion of people on horseback, equine.
I can grab a few, Matt. Vandalism, consistent mowing and surface maintenance. And then combined with that, there's another one, repairs are timely, summer mowing is regularly scheduled, and few accessible toilets.
Got another one here in the room. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw your hand go up. No, sorry.
Oh, we have a question over here.
This might be a future issue. It's easy for active transportation. I would expect bike racks. People in a lot of bikes. And that comes up for businesses as an area. You when you're going out for recreation, you're going out, you're cycling, going back, you're walking, like that, but just in time to go on the way somewhere, bike racks.
Yeah, yep. So more bike racks at strategic locations. That's the, yep, thank you.
I wonder, is St. Johnsbury 0 and then we head west for the total mileage?
Good question.
We run our projects west to east, so I think mile 0 is in Swan. That's why the full project name is Swan, St. Johnsbury, STP, LBRT. So.
Yeah, because some of the signs that are on the trail now, you sort of wonder which way that is coming from, and sort of use common sense and say, okay, we're like 45 miles in the same shape, and it's just fine.
Unless you're right in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, that goes back to LVRT T14 and having a real cohesive set of signs for the whole trail. We really want to make this look the same all the way across. So, yeah, that is a concern for
In regards to the ATVs that have been seen on the small way or whatnot, I've ridden the rail trail in Prince Edward Island in Canada. I think a really nice trail there. They have some steel gates across, but there were lots of ATV tracks up there where they go around the gate, down the ditch, and back around. So I don't know if they who knows if that may be necessary in the future.
Thank you. So for those online who maybe didn't hear those comments, first question about the numbering, the mile point numbering on the trail. Sounds like we're going to be going west to east, so Swan to St. Johnsbury. The second one around ways to limit or restrict ATVs, and some examples from other trails that maybe haven't worked quite as well because ATVs just go around the barriers.
Have another question here in the room.
Since we've moved on to anticipated issues.
Yeah.
One thing I anticipate as the trail becomes more complete, there's going to be a larger number of people wanting to do the whole thing. You know, right now, each section is kind of like a sidewalk to nowhere. And when it's all complete, I think the thing that's going to really be necessary is an opportunity for people to camp.
Yes.
Because the hotel options along the route are few and far between, and they're not on the trail. I've done a cross-country bicycle trip where it was really common. The trail in that case was just a designated route as much as an actual physical path. And many towns along the way opened their public parks to transient people on foot and on bike to camp. And I was traveling pregnant with a toddler, so it was super important to have safe camping on the way. Often the request was to call the local police department and just let them know, hey, I'm going to be camping here tonight, and they let me do that. But I think that broadens the category too of community resources beyond economic development, because that's not something that's necessarily going to bring the town a lot of money, but it might cost them some money. But I think a good way to maybe shut down the type of camping or toileting or whatever you don't want to have happen is to provide appropriate resources so that it can be done in a healthy way.
Thank you. Thank you. For those who may not have heard, to boil it down, essentially looking for opportunities to camp along the trail with once we have the full 94 miles open, people look to make the entire route, maybe looking for some additional overnight options.
I think we do have another question here in the room.
I would say I'm from the Midwest, and a lot of small towns in the Midwest, if you're cycling through, you can't park or you can camp in the town center because there's already facilities there. So kind of take care of that same thing. This might be a great place for a Vermont solution where there's a way for farmers to get permits to have sites on their land or something like that. You're going right through a lot of places, and everybody use a little bit of extra money or something like that might bring in the summer. I think this is a great opportunity to kind of compete with skiing in the winter. This is people love to come here, and there's a lot of opportunities along this corridor for that type of stuff. Food truck events. You can have an end-to-end ride. You could do something where like you have the town supply food trucks. There's all kinds of things like that going on the island when you cycle right now. So good things to think about.
Great, great. Just to repeat that was a kind of a follow-up to the camping options with suggestion or possibility of using farms along the corridor if there's an opportunity to maybe streamline the permitting to allow for camping at those farms, and also opportunities for food trucks strategically placed along the way. So maybe we can go online. Let's get a couple comments there.
All right, one I see is B&B, beds, breakfast, and bikes. More campsites, confirmation / agreement with that. Actually, this is interesting. This is a comment that we talked about pre-meeting. Bridge decking can get slick. Can some friction surface be added? Commenting on one of the photos we saw earlier. I don't know if this, I'm losing my spot in the chat here. This may have been for the prior question, but trash cans need to be placed and maintained by benches also, presumably to increase the beautification along the trail.
Okay. We'll come back in the room. Did I see another hand up?
I had a question. I was curious how much state property is owned along the LVRT and what the actual width of the right of way is.
I'll look here. The entire route is state land.
Right. But I'm wondering, does it pass through any area that's like a part of state forest or state property? I realize the LVRT is state owned. What is the width that the state has for a corridor?
I'll let Chris take this one.
It varies along the trail, the width of the right of way. When the rail came through, they really took as much as they could in terms of right of way because they didn't know what they would need to do in terms of grading. And so basically, the steeper the slope, the wider the right of way. And I would point you to the V-Trans right of way viewer. We have a map that you can use online where it'll show the LVRT right of way. It'll show all of our state-owned right of ways. And you can toggle that to turn on parcels adjacent to it and see what's there. So the easiest way to answer that question is to use the V-Trans right of way viewer.
Thanks. We've had some great questions from here in the room. Alan, do we want to visit some more of the online questions and comments?
Sure. Let me take a quick look here.
One that I noticed real quickly, we had a question in the room about bike locks. We had another question in the online Q&A. Someone was wondering if there'd be bike rentals available.
Connected to that, Matt, there's one here. It says great opportunity to connect commuters. So it'd be nice to use that as a nice picturesque way to and from work. One person asks here, would local groups be allowed to use the trail for running events and races? So maybe it looks like an opportunity to maybe request access or to sign up and reserve a portion of it. Looking for another one here. That's about, that might be about the net new ones since the last question.
Great. I'm gonna toggle to the next slide because there is some overlap here, and I know we've kind of gotten into the good and the bad. So if anyone's holding back on potential opportunities for the corridor, we'll kind of open up for that as well. The previous one was any issues or concerns or hurdles. So opportunities, we've touched on many: camping, food trucks, and so forth. But if anyone has any additional thoughts on potential opportunities, now would be the time to raise that point. We start here in the room.
I want to be the first to sign up for a run the whole length of it. So the 93.4 mile run.
Yes.
The big problem with doing it down where they do the Vermont 50 and Vermont 100 is so much of the course is privately owned. And it's always a challenge to balance the local landowners' priorities with the race priorities. And this is such a great opportunity.
Yeah. I could definitely see some, plaques or something that I've completed, all 94 miles or something, a bumper sticker or something. Yeah, that's great. Let's see, before we move on, let's do one more cast here in the room and then online. Do we have any additional thoughts? Ellen, we'll come to you in a second. We've got one comment here, but if you've got any more ready.
As the development goes here, when it's finished, the reason traffic will come, use it. One of the thoughts I had is, I live in Morrisville. My daughter and I can keep everything except up in the swampy area. Although I have been part of that out of Sonoma, but now it's that's Cisco.
Yes.
Across of having some sort of transportation, maybe that if someone wanted to start at one end and get to the other end, or leaving their car here, and maybe it could be set up at some time if there's a bus or a van that would transport them back to their house. I don't know if that might be a good draw for people trying to buy the thing from other states and whatnot. Schools.
Yeah, great. So for those who may not have heard that, the suggestion was potential shuttle service from one end to the other, so that folks don't necessarily have to leave a car at either end if they're looking to drive or to ride the full trip.
Alan, we do have another question here in the room, and I'm going through a lot of Clorox wipes here. Can we grab you from online in the meantime?
Sure, I'll give you a break to catch up with those Clorox wipes. A couple here, good one I'm personally interested, farm to fork bike rides. Also, there's a comment here, connecting our village and all recreational opportunities around each town, such as mountain biking, hiking, and canoeing. So almost using the trail as a marketing vehicle and message, which I think is great. Let's see, connecting with adjacent landowners and farms to encourage their participation in future economic opportunities. Let's see, we've got one or two more. Let's see, small villages will now be able to support businesses such as campgrounds, diners, and the like, which is great. And we grab one more here and then hand it back to Matt. Connecting people using the trail with the river for recreation and riparian habitat. So hand it back to Matt for the moment.
I have a suggestion for Johnson, Fred Bobby, I think knows what I'm going to say. We'd like to increase the number of bridges from 53 to 54. We'd like to, there was an old snowmobile bridge across the Lamoille and Johnson, washed away many years ago. And if we could restore a bridge across the Lamoille and Johnson, and I have a map to show people that it's interesting. But currently in Johnson, there's a good north-south connection with the Long Trail. Yeah. We could add, by adding a bridge at Lamoille, over the Lamoille, between municipal properties that we have, you would connect with snowmobile and bike trails north-south that go statewide, plus a whole bunch of local connections.
And that bridge is the missing link. Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
Okay, great. So just to repeat that, a suggestion for a 54th bridge added to the LVRT in Johnson to make some connections between the trail, the Long Trail, and some other municipal resources. Okay, it looks like we've gotten everything here in the room. Alan, anything further to report from the virtual side?
Let's see, someone had mentioned accessibility to e-bike charging stations. And let's see, of course, one of our project team members had shared a link to the crowdsourcing input tool, which we'll talk about in just a moment, but we'll make sure we get that shared for everyone to see. And then last one I can call out here is use the trail to highlight historic and natural resource features along the whole length. Good, provides a great education opportunity.
Great. Okay. Well, I think we'll move on. This has been fantastic input. I really appreciate it. And also in this hybrid setting, this is a good way to get input during a pandemic, but not ideal. It'd be great to have everyone here in the room so that you can hear and kind of react to comments. But I really do appreciate that. I will note, I guess I forgot to note at the outset, this entire session is getting recorded. This will be posted on the VTrans website. If you missed anything or want to relive it again, or share it with friends, it will be available. So to what Alan had just teed up, this is what you're seeing here is just a screen grab of the crowdsource input tool. It's essentially a map-based kind of feedback tool. So you can go on here and essentially asks you where on the trail do you have thoughts or comments you'd like to leave. And so you can add your comment on the right, click the point on the trail that relates to that comment. And then what's nice here, we have the feature where you can heart ideas that you like, so that you don't have to repeat what somebody said, and so it actually automatically sorts so that the top liked comments will sort to the top. So if you want to check back here, every so often, this just went live today. So as people start to populate this, we'll start to see which ideas kind of bubble to the top. So that is all here. I'm going to just go to the next slide to show you how to access that. So at the bottom, you can see the VTrans website, and then just /LVRT will take you to all things LVRT. It has information on the construction project as well as this management plan. So if you're interested in the status of construction updates or this to track this management plan, this is your place to go. I also want to note up in the top right, you can see here, if you want to stay involved, get added to the email list. You can click here at the top. And so for those folks who are virtual and you don't have a sign-in sheet to fill in, this is your place to sign in. If you do want to kind of stay plugged in, we'll make sure to be notifying everyone who's on this list as we move forward with any future developments or public meetings. And then just the other yellow circle down at the bottom that says public input, that is where you would find the crowdsource map tool. So anything that any ideas you come up with as you leave here tonight, or ideas that you didn't share, or a week from now you have some thoughts, this is your place to go to pass that along. So with that, I think we're going to just do a quick little switcheroo here. Okay. Right. Let's see if this works. So. Okay, so the much anticipated word cloud. So this is these are all the words and phrases that you offered for the vision for the corridor. And not surprisingly, connection. We definitely heard that word come up quite a bit in different contexts as folks are throwing out words. Obviously, Vermont, health, recreation are rising to the top. For those who haven't seen these or used these before, the size of the font is kind of in relation to the number of times that word appears in the comments. You can see connected, a river, opportunity. So this is really great. This is perfect starting point for to craft the vision. We'll have that draft vision, which will be articulated. It'll be shared on the project site when we come back here in March, which we'll touch on here in a second. We'll be sharing that draft vision and start to articulate some of those goals and actions that can kind of lead us in that direction. Michelle.
David, I just wondered if you could talk about whether people can continue to add vision statements through the website in some way if they think about things as we go forward.
Yes. So the question from Michelle was whether folks can continue to add thoughts on the vision itself as we move forward. And so here we go. Looks like we're advancing. So as we move into the next steps, I do want to say, so as you, for those additional thoughts that you have, well, I guess that'll be the next slide. That'll have the contact information. So I will get back to Michelle's, respond to Michelle's question in the next slide. But just to kind of wrap us up here, where we're going from here, we're just about done, as Karen alluded or showed all of the kind of the statistics and existing conditions for the corridor. That's being wrapped up into a document as we speak. We'll be starting those stakeholder interviews throughout the month of February and starting into that gap analysis and needs assessment. So it's really building off of those issues and opportunities that you talked about. We're going to start to look through some of those, missing connections or opportunities for camping or, other amenities along the trail. So that will take place during the month of March. We'll be back at the end of March, late March, to fill you in on where we are with that gap assessment, along with where we landed with the draft vision. We'll then get into the recommendations and implementation plans. That's really going to kind of guide VTrans and partners moving forward on how much they're spending each year on culvert maintenance or bridge maintenance or surface maintenance, or where we're creating small connections into villages and so forth. So that's really where that detail will get laid out. That gets developed in May. We'll have a draft version of that in April, back for our third public meeting in April. Then this all wraps up in June, just in time for the formal handoff to VTrans for managing the trail. And so to wrap up here, just note on the screen here, we've got both the VTrans project manager, Amy Bell, her contact information is here, as well as Karen Sentoffs. So for those of you who have thoughts, specific thoughts that you want to provide that aren't necessarily map-based, if you have any kind of geographic-based comments, the crowdsource input tool is great. But to Michelle's comment, or if you have kind of overarching kind of corridor-wide thoughts or thoughts about the vision itself, probably the best way to go is to send those to either Amy or Karen, and they will get incorporated into the project record. So with that, we are wrapped up. I very much appreciate everyone coming out here tonight, and thank you everyone for sticking around online. And we'll stick around here in the room if others have questions. And for everyone who's online, have a good night.
And one quick thing for the folks in the room, we would love to hear any feedback you may have on how this meeting went tonight. So if you want to stick around, good, bad, we welcome it all. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everyone.